Station 51, engine 27, engine 32, truck 105.
You're listening to The Firebreak with Steve Wolf. Welcome back to The Firebreak. I'm Steve Wolf. As you know, The Firebreak is sponsored by Team Wildfire, developing innovative technology for wildfire control. Check it out on the web, teamwildfire.com. Exciting stuff. Equally exciting, if not more, is Mike Ross, who I've got with us, joining us live from Tasmania, Australia. Pretty exciting. Mike is the founder at Indicium and also with the spin-off product, Fire Foresight. Mike, welcome to The Firebreak. How are you today?
I'm good, thanks, Steve, and thanks for having me on.
You bet. So what are you working on right now?
Well, we're in the off-season at the moment for fire, so we're primarily just getting ready for next season, building out some new tools, trying out some new products, and just servicing all our other areas of concern. So I just got a notification on our phone that's flood alerts now, so we're into flood season.
It's flood season?
Yeah, so it's flood season all year round in Australia, but we've got flood products as well as fire products, so yeah, we're getting very busy.
Something for every season.
Yes.
So tell me about Indicium and what you do. What's the product?
Indicium was a company I founded 9 years ago. It's a data integration and IoT product.
Wait, you said you founded it 9 years ago?
Yes. So
because you still have a relatively full head of hair for a founder.
There's a fair bit of grey in there,
okay.
Especially in the beard. So yeah, and children will do that too. But anyway, 9 years ago, I spent a long time working in utilities in the energy and water space, and decided it was time to actually build something I wanted to build for me. So started the company and focusing on solving all the problems I saw in my previous life. And we built a platform to enable us to manage high levels of data in real time. And then we focus that onto different segments, going from, as I said earlier, floods, smart cities, through to forests. And about 6 years ago, a friend of mine, David Bartlett, and I coined the term #digitalforest and started applying IoT technology in the forest. And it's grown from there.
Wow. So tell me about how a user in the wildfire space might access your service, and what would they learn from it?
So we're expanding out across the world. So we've got boots on the ground all over Australia at the moment. We've had deployments recently in Asia, and we're quite often over in the States running around. And we've got projects lined up in Europe and around America. So if people want to talk to us about what we're doing, we've got our website, and we're on LinkedIn.
But I want you to tell me.
Yeah, and we're running around doing conferences and all that sort of stuff, talking to people. So what we're doing in the fire space is evolving. We've started off using IoT technology. We've deployed in our home state of Tasmania a nearly statewide LoRaWAN network covering in excess of 30,000 square kilometres of coverage, and we use that to reach into places where the cell network doesn't work. So most forests don't have a need for coverage. Possums and kangaroos don't have cell phones, so we're putting devices out there doing different things, and so we've expanded that coverage into those areas.
Are you working on getting cell phones into the hands of kangaroos?
No. That'll
keep it in their pouch.
Yeah, I only work for the mums, but we'll keep the cell phones off them, I think.
Right. So what type of data I'm guessing you have sensors and they detect something.
Yeah,
smoke or heat or sound or
all sorts of things. So that journey started monitoring eagles' nests.
Wow.
So in the world of forest management, you don't want to disturb your precious creatures. So we deployed sensors above eagles' nests to see if the nests are active. And so if we know a nest is active, we can avoid that area and let them get on with making new eagles.
How do you do that? How do you find the nest and then put a sensor above it?
So typically, aerial surveys are done with helicopters. They fly around. They know the sorts of areas where nests will be, and they go and scan those areas looking for new nests. Once they find them, they need to keep monitoring, so they keep flying them over with helicopters looking for activity, which is probably more disturbing to the birds than just leaving them alone. So that's why we wanted to find is there a way to sort of reduce that impact. So yeah, that was the first foray into sensors in the forest, but we've since moved on to hyperlocal weather data, soil moisture, fuel moisture sensing, and particulate sensing to get an idea of if prescribed burns are sending off smoke in areas they shouldn't be, all that sort of stuff. So yeah, the number of sensors out there is growing, and the types of sensors is certainly growing depending on customer need.
So you put sensors of various types.
Yep.
Right. Particulate matter, fuel moisture, soil moisture, whatever your client wants to monitor.
Yeah, and all depending on what their use case is. So soil moisture and fuel moisture are great around prescribed burns, understanding the conditions of when's the right time to burn. Your weather data is also critical, understanding what's if it's blowing 50 knots, then maybe you don't want to burn. But if those conditions are just right,
like, do you just say here are what the conditions are, now make a smart choice, or do you say here are what the conditions are and here's what we advise you do or don't do?
That's what we're working on. We're working towards that, working towards using AI and other things to sort of bring together huge amounts of different data sets and sort of analyze that and come up with sort of traffic lights of when is it the right time to burn. So that's stuff we're actively working on now, trying to make that decision-making process as streamlined as possible.
So that would be
in the world we're living in now, getting those fuel reduction burns done is critical to get that fuel risk down, and the windows of opportunity to do that are shrinking. So making sure that we make that process as easy and as safe as possible is important.
And is there a prediction way to do that? Because it takes a while for crews to put together, a plan for a prescribed burn. And so do they wake up that day and they say, oh, Mike's data is saying today's the day? Or can you say, 4 days from now is going to be good. So you have some time to plan, right?
That's what we're working on, is to get that prediction out as far as possible. And they are using the technology now to sort of plan out several days in advance. They can see the trend of where things will be in several days' time, and they've got the weather forecast information there to see if it's going to rain, it's going to be hot, all that sort of stuff. So they can certainly plan further out into the future. This is replacing a very analog process where people would actually be driving around the forest every day, taking samples, checking the weights of sticks, all this sort of stuff. And now that's all becoming digitized. It's a lot more streamlined to have that information in real time rather than sporadically every couple of days.
Absolutely. So nobody would say that the wildfire technology space was overcrowded, right?
No.
Very few people have had the courage to enter the space at all. But there are a few in there. And I'm wondering how you differentiate. So I would, if I'm looking for a service like yours, I would say, well, how is this different than what I could get from TechnoSilva or from N5 or from Dryad or from Pyre? How do you break that market up and decide, when the right product is for the right client coincides?
Well, I think you just answered it. Then it's the right product for the right client. So you've mentioned a few sensors that we've already integrated into the system.
Okay.
So we'll look around and go, what's the right sort of sensor, or what's the right sort of technology for the use case, and we'll do the integration and we'll make that work. So, for instance, we've just finished a deployment in Western Australia where we've deployed fire cameras, but we've also deployed Dryad sensors. So we've got a combination of both technologies. So ultra early sensor detection for certain parts of the estate that we're monitoring, and then we've got that longer distance camera technology there for monitoring the surrounds, but also giving us visual verification of fire, which you don't actually get with the sensors.
Right. You might get it with satellites from Aurora Tech or something like that.
Yeah, and Aurora Tech, again, another example. We can consume those data streams in. We're consuming different satellite technology streams at the moment. So we might get a wildfire detection. We can then help pinpoint that using the satellite data as well, if it's available yet, or the sensor data, or whatever data it is. It's all amalgamated into a single platform.
Okay. So a lot of people show up with a solution, right? I'm selling my solution, right? But you're actually trying to solve a problem for the customer, because right, the customer just wants to know, when's the best time to burn? When do I need to, pre-position suppression assets because conditions are, unfavorable or favorable for wildfire spread, right? And so then you would step in and say, okay, well, here are the 8 different products that might come from other companies and other streams, but we can tie this all together for you and give it to you in a way that's actionable. So you don't have to figure out where you need N5, where you need Dryad, where you need Firewave, etc.
Yep. And on top of that, the integration aspect of what we do means that we can integrate with agencies. We can automate sending data through to different people when events occur, or we can integrate with fire spread models. So you're feeding all that data in and running those sort of models in real time. So instead of, there's a fire here, it's getting out of control, what's going to do? It's like, well, we've detected a fire. Why don't we just automatically do a fire spread model and give you, an indication of what you might be up against in the next couple of hours? So, making that information just ready and available is sort of what we want to do.
Okay. So let's say you have a stream from a company called SkyTL, and they specialize in ember cast, right, versus actual flame front. And then you might get some data from Aurora Tech because they've got their own fire spread model as well. And then TechnoSilva has their fire spread. So would you take these and then weight them and aggregate them?
Yeah,
or would you also run your own?
We could do that. There's other partners we work with who have different models as well. It often depends on the agencies you're dealing with too. So do they have their own preferred models they need to run? So it's just ultimately limited by the integration capability of that product or platform. If they allow us to do it, then we can do it.
There's not necessarily a correlation between a preferred product and a superior product, right?
No.
Very often an agency just goes with whatever salesperson was persistent enough to drive all the way up the mountain and talk to them.
Yep.
And that doesn't mean that's the better solution for them. It's just the one they've got.
Yep.
So what do you do when you get a client who might be using a model that rarely correlates with reality and historical data? Can you nudge them along into a newer model?
Well, I suppose from what we've seen, modeling takes time. It's almost an after the fact thing. So we're hoping as they start to see this sort of technology enable more real time running of models, that they'll start to see that there's faults in those models and come to that decision themselves.
Hopefully, right? So whose job is that? Who would be your liaison at a department?
So in a lot of cases, we provide information to agencies via, in your case, calling 911. We'll call 000 here in Australia, and that's the way we pass information on to agencies. That's very analog. But in other cases, we're digitally notifying them and linking them into the platform so they can see that information, whatever information we're calculating for them is there at the end of that link for them to see. So it's then up for them to decide if that's useful information or not. And we try to value add to that as much as possible.
Have you chatted with the folks at Firewave in Israel?
I haven't come across Firewave yet.
Okay. It's an interesting concept for detection. So if you're using a Dryad or N5 sensor, the sensors need to be downwind of what you're testing for. In the Firewave one, they're using microphones that pick up the specific frequencies that fires generate. And so it doesn't have to be downwind. It just has to be within earshot. And then their microphones triangulate to position the fire for you. So I think an interesting, promising
it's a different
addition to the fleet.
Yeah. I think ultimately with that sort of technology, it's going to come down to the cost.
Right.
Yeah, and the range at which it can sense. So you don't really want to be putting a sensor every meter.
Right.
to pick up a
You
fire.
want to, you just can't afford to, right?
Yeah. So,
and so when you're ingesting data, are you relying on the sensor manufacturer to provide the mesh network for feeding the data? Or are you able to assist them in accessing uplinks for their data?
Well, that depends on the sensor manufacturer and what they require.
Okay.
And it probably depends on the location too. And I mentioned we do a statewide LoRaWAN network in Tasmania, but there's parts that network won't reach. And so even if you do have a network technology like that, you might not be able to reach right into the World Heritage Area where you're not allowed to build towers. You can't use that technology there. So we often will deploy different sort of comms technologies depending on the location. And direct-to-satellite technology now is becoming more common. So, having a sensor talking straight to a satellite gets rid of all those needs to having towers and coverage.
So why is a site a heritage site? Because you want to protect it.
Yep.
And so you do that by banning the technology that would allow for its protection.
Yep.
This sounds like something that only a government can come up with.
Oh, yeah. Governments.
Right. The first rule is it doesn't have to make sense, right?
No. And I suppose there's certainly a lot that goes on in the space of, you've got ideas, you've got solutions, but regulations get in the way of actually making those a reality. So that's probably the slowest thing that we see is, we can build technology, we can put it in front of people, but then you've got that potentially years of wait before you're actually allowed to use it.
Yeah, well, we don't know how it's going to play out yet, but we know that here in the States, they just signed into law a common sense wildfire management bill. And I hope that, if nothing else, it lives up to its name of common sense.
No, fingers crossed.
Yeah, right. But they're supposedly going to collapse several agencies into a new agency, and therefore they eliminate some of the lost crosstalk and siloed information that keeps solutions from coming out quickly.
Yep.
So that's international, right? I'm sure you come across that everywhere you work.
Yeah, well, drones is a classic example. We're doing autonomous launching of drones to investigate fires. But beyond line of sight is something we're allowed to do now. But you've got potentially contested airspaces. It's certainly not something that we can actually deploy yet until regulation and agencies are all ready to go with that concept.
Well, it's in the line of someone's site. Maybe not yours, right? So you're talking about these boxes, and you stick this box off in the middle of of nowhere, and then via communications with the box, you can tell it to launch the drone, fly around, send you some data, park itself, and recharge.
Yeah. So at the moment we're with our wildfire detection, if we can detect a fire, we can, and that's in range of the tower, we can pre-position a drone in a box, and today we could launch that drone and have it over that fire within 10 minutes, 15 minutes, live streaming thermal imagery of the fire. So that's all another data stream to help agencies figure out how they're going to respond to that.
And is that going to be live streamed on a YouTube channel?
It could be.
Right. People would watch.
People probably would. Yeah.
Yeah. So what's the next challenge?
Well, we're part of the Wild X Prize challenge at the moment. So there's a number of companies involved in that. We've got Indicium. We've got Little Place Labs out of Texas, TDS out of Tasmania, a drone company, and Robotics Cats out of Hong Kong, where we've working together on doing that AI detection of fire, as we've already solved, and then deploying drones to not just look at the fire but put it out. So how can we actually get some sort of retardant or water or something on top of that fire to suppress it in its very early stages? And I was just watching a video you posted this morning of water jet engines on ATVs, thinking, I wonder if we could put that on the drone. It seemed to work really well, and we've tested a few different concepts. When you've only got a small drone, like it's only 200, we're only up to about 200 kilos of payload at the moment.
That's enough, actually, for what we're doing. Yeah.
So what sort of mechanism actually is the most effective at putting out a fire from that size? And we're probably going to have to go to drone swarms in the future to actually do this on scale.
Right. I mean, a missile can travel a lot faster.
Yeah,
and the targeting
we've joked about that.
I'm right. I mean, the targeting mechanisms already exist for that. They can drop a missile in the exact spot they want. And if you had 200 kilogram payload and you throw 180 kilograms of liquid nitrogen on that fire, it's going to spread and snuff and freeze pretty quickly, I would imagine. But then you might come across some regulations about the use of missiles in civilian areas. Yeah,
I suspect that'll be a problem.
Well, that's what we'll see, right? Whether the boundaries of common sense get properly blurred.
Yeah, I think you need to rebrand away from missile to something else.
Right.
Yeah.
I was rewatching the footage this morning of that first suppression of the grassland fire with the jet engine, and I noticed that after the tank had run out of water, the suppression impact continued simply from the impact of the high-speed air from the jet engine. That it was blowing out the fire just as much as when we had water in it. So we'd have to find out whether whether it leaves conditions more ripe for reignition than when we had water or retardant. But you actually could blow out the fire no differently than blowing out a birthday candle.
Yeah.
So for
you
fire to propagate, right? You have to have the temperature for propagation, and that high-speed wind dilutes the air that's around the fire, which is in the plus 400 degree Fahrenheit range. But if you keep cutting that with more and more air from ambient air, you lower that temperature, and pretty soon things don't burn. So there's much to be experimented with, right? This is
attaching it to a drone though would be interesting. Is that something that's going to move the drone?
Right. I mean, you're either pointing straight down, or you have two jet engines in opposition to each other, which could then be offset from each other slightly, and it would rotate and make a pretty good cloud. But we found that, and I mean, it's widely known, right? Mists are 6 to 10 times more effective than water streams, and they stay on the vegetation rather than just running off of it into the soil. So,
yeah.
It's an exciting time because now, we're not just asking questions about hypothetical things. Some of the technologies are beginning to exist, and now we can actually experiment with them.
Yeah, it's going to be
provided
time coming up.
R&D, R&D
budgets are there.
Yeah, exactly, Mike. Exactly. So if you had some R&D budget available to you, I'm guessing you have some. What's your priority for testing?
We're a bootstrap company, so we reinvest all our profits at the moment into evolving our technology. So we are looking at raising funds in the fire foresight space of fire detection and suppression. So yeah, I think we've probably hit the limits of what we can self-fund in terms of trying out all these different technologies. We have a product that's ready to go, but it's always evolving. We're always adding new features and new technologies. So drones is probably one that we'd love to see growth in terms of the technology, the capability, and so forth. But yeah, we start to get into a space that's very expensive. And yeah, trying out all the different suppression technologies would be awesome. We can get a drone closer to the ground. You could probably safely fly a chopper. So maybe the jet engine concept would work.
Right. So the jet engines can actually be both the propulsion and the lift.
Potentially, yeah.
If you put 4, 5, 6 jet engines all on gimbals, right, then you can do VTOL. They can do high speed movement to a fire, and then you can inject the retardants into the stream, into the exhaust
at the right time. Yeah,
right at the right time, and then have the jet engine exhaust do the aerosolization in the direction of the mist, and then come home and refill.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Hopefully completely autonomously.
Right. I mean, that's what our Department of Defense would like to see. Right. What's something that basically like X Prize, right? Detect it, go put it out, and tell me about it after.
Yep.
Right. So how do you divide up the mechanical and software challenges that still face the wildfire space to make sure that you're not double dipping or trying to solve the same problem that someone else is solving?
Well, that's where we watch and learn from others, and we don't try to reinvent every wheel.
Right.
So if a drone comes along that will suit the purpose of what we need, then we'll look at using that drone technology. If there's another satellite provider for detection, we'll look at dragging that in as well. We don't want to be stuck going, this is our only trick.
Right.
We want to be sort of continually evolving the services that we offer, and if that means adding someone else's service into our suite, then we'll do that.
Why not?
We don't have an endless budget, and you look at some of these wildfire detection companies or other companies, they've got huge budgets, and so we can't hope to compete with. We're not using Black Hawk helicopters,
right, like Rain
drone
does,
kits
right?
in them. Yep.
Yeah, right.
But if that's a suitable technology for someone, then maybe we integrate with that sort of company, and that they pre-deploy assets, and we tell them where to go. Boots on the ground all over the world's not really feasible for us. So we'll be looking for people who are in places who potentially might have their own drones or their own cameras already deployed, and we can then go and integrate our technology into what's already there, so that it's cheaper to get it out there, faster to get it out there, and it's serviced by locals, so that it's up and resilient, and spreading that workload among people around the world.
Right, necessary.
Yeah.
So you spend time on LinkedIn or Wildfire News, or how do you come across people who you think are going to be interesting partners for you?
A couple of weeks ago, I was in Malaysia at a Axis Technologies event. So we use primarily Axis cameras for our fire detection, and that was a great opportunity to meet other integrators from around sort of the Southeast Asian market. And so we've talked to a lot of those companies. They might be operating in Australia or in India or Indonesia, and let them know about what we do. And we're continuing discussions with those sorts of people about, here's a technology you can apply across what you already do. You're already on the ground. You've already got techs installing things. So why not add a service on top of that that's got a great value to potential customers, so that we're getting a lot of traction in that space. We last week deployed our first trailerized camera system. So that's another area we're getting into, so that we can work with partners to build up these trailers so they can be rapidly deployed into areas you want to monitor and look for fire. But jumping back to regulation, we can deploy one of those on a hilltop where there's a road much faster than we can get approval from a government agency or from a telecommunication provider to put a camera on a tower. So that's a nice stopgap to get coverage while you wait for the paperwork to gather dust.
Right. Are you able to access data streams from other companies where there's not currently a client geography involved? So if LA County, let's say they had some N5 sensors or some Dryad sensors, and they wanted you to monitor that and then parse that intel into some actionable data or recommendations, then obviously you'd have access to that stream. Do you have access to streams from other areas where you're not contracted, just so that you can start to learn more about how the data correlates to facts on the ground and make your software more robust from that?
Yeah, we have lots of different data streams coming into the platform at the moment that we're just evaluating, and we'll try putting that in there just to see, does that offer any benefit. So we've tried, for instance, different lightning detection technologies, and then comparing that with other ones to see which ones are more accurate. And we're working with other partners for building new high accuracy lightning detection systems. So that's an area of that we're evolving, and we've had some great success so far in evolving some of those data streams in what we do.
And about what percentage of fires that result in an insurance payout are caused by lightning?
Oh, that's a stat I don't know. But I do know in Tasmania, our last fire season, we had a lot of dry lightning, and we had fires in locations we've never had fires before. And we've had some massive devastation on the west coast of Tasmania in what was normally a sort of very wet, beautiful area. And massive fires have gone through that, all due to dry lightning. We saw after that in some areas that we're monitoring with cameras, we used lightning as a incident source. So we'd stream in that lightning data, we'd pinpoint it on the map, and we'd say, oh, that's within 20 kilometers of a camera. We'll monitor that lightning strike with the camera. And we actually found an example where, closely monitoring that, we had the first signs of smoke within 20 minutes of the strike. So we could have that detection of the smoke through to the agency involved within 25 minutes, so they could then respond to that strike rather than waiting for the weather to completely clear and send up a helicopter to go scan them all.
Right.
Yeah, using what's already available to have a look.
So, but respond to that strike might or might not include a suppression effort, depending on the benefits of fuel reduction and the risks of that fire. How do you help a department evaluate, hey, I know you weren't planning prescribed burn there, but you got a burn going. We suggest you let it go to this point or to that point because it's going to create a good fire break for the next one that comes through.
Well, I think we'll leave that decision making to those fire agencies, I think. But okay. There's having enough information there for them to make that decision is probably the most important thing. And we have seen that where people have left the fire going in certain areas because they know, well, we're never going to get the chance to burn that.
So they're going to manage the fire rather than
manage it.
The fire.
Yeah.
Right. Opportunistic prescribed burn.
Yeah.
Okay. So you leave that up to the agency. Right. So I just, my concern is if you leave it up to the agency, which yes, I guess you have to do. But then the best answer will be the answer that whoever was on duty at that time came up with, and how much coffee they'd had or how much sleep they had. And then, they're not getting the benefits of, how an AI might parse that problem out.
Yeah. Well, that's even if the AI could give them a suggestion there, it's ultimately still up to them.
Sure. Yeah, I'm wondering to what degree we're going to say, well, the AI says this is the best thing to do. Obviously, do what you want.
Well, one day probably the AI will suggest the best thing to do, and if you didn't listen,
right. Right. Well, what we're hoping, I guess, is that the AI will come up with really great decisions, and then the incident commanders can have credit for a successful outcome.
Yep.
We'll see. What's next?
What
do you see coming down the road, and how do you see fire suppression looking different than it does, 10 years out?
Oh, apart from that drone piece, I think it's just being able to get the right sort of information to people on how to tackle that fire. So be that the fire spread model, telling them where the fire will go. Some of the places we've seen fires start, it might be an hour's drive to get to the other side of that fire. So going to the wrong side of the fire and fighting it as it's running away from you is not going to help. But then having to drive an hour around to the other side of it, it's going to be too late. So just continually making that information better for them to consume, so they can make better decisions, I think is the number one priority for us. And then bringing in whatever technologies we can find to suppress that fire autonomously, that'll be a big step. But regulations will get in the way there. So at the moment we'll 100% be focusing on that data piece, making all that information available, and while our partners work on the drones, and watching this space very closely for what other technologies we can integrate with as time goes by.
Well, it's a fascinating space to be in, isn't it?
Yes, definitely.
At this time, right? If you were in this business 20 years ago, no one would really be watching what you're doing or care too much.
No, it's definitely hitting the news a lot more these days, and things are certainly getting a lot bigger, and the responses need to match. So, there's a lot that technology, I think, can do to help reduce that risk and help fight those fires.
Your data is certainly a very helpful part of that puzzle. So I know you're about to be inundated with workers as they show up and nudge you out of your space. So, don't want you to be run out there, but I want to thank you so much for joining us on the Fire Break today.
Oh, thanks for having me, Steve. It's been a good chat. It's good to hear what you guys are up to as well, and I'll keep listening to your podcast.
Wonderful.
Like, comment, and subscribe.
Yeah, right. As they say. One day I'll learn how to do all that stuff. Right now, I just enjoy having great conversations with interesting folks. So thanks for joining me for that. We've been chatting with Mike Ross. He's the founder at Indicium Dynamics in Tasmania, Australia. Pretty exciting. I think people are thrilled just to hear the word Tasmania, even if they have no associations with it other than what they got from cartoons they watched as a kid. So thanks so much for joining us. I'm Steve Wolf. You've been listening to The Fire Break, and we'll see you at the next one. Until then, be careful, be proactive, and take care of yourself.
Thanks, Steve.